Hello, welcome to an unexpected podcast. This is Matt. I'm being joined today by Alisher in Philadelphia, Mick in Old England, Evan, who is now in Ireland, enjoying college, and lurking in the background but unseen is Rainier in the Netherlands, who is having some internet issues and is coming in from his phone with camera problems.
Back
So
to the pros from whence you came.
that's right. So he will be a disembodied voice for this episode. And for
We've
this
got four
episode,
countries.
that's right,
Yeah.
we have more countries,
Yes.
more European content here, as we've been unsuccessful in getting European players over to the U.S. So what we're going to do is just send our people over to Europe and colonize it. So that's the plan. That's what we're doing.
Alisher's gonna go to Italy, and he'll for sure defect.
Yep. So, okay. So what we're going to do for a concept this time is something a little new. We are going to do a series of episodes. They're not all necessarily going to be consecutive, but we're going to do a series of episodes where we take one of the preeminent competitive lists that's out there. And today it's going to be the host of the Dragon Emperor Legendary Legion. And one of us with some experience playing that is going to come up with a list. And by the way, I don't think we discussed points. My list is 650 points. Is that what folks did for countering?
I believe you messaged 750 points.
I
You
did
said
750.
750, so we all made 750 lists.
But then,
All right,
but then we
so-
all have 650 lists from Articon as well, so we could just use those.
No, let's do 750 points. What I will do is I can add on 100 points of figures onto this pretty easily. Then we are going to I'm going to read out my list, and then each of the other hosts is going to say how they decided to counter program this, and then we are going to go from there. And they collectively are going to decide who they think is the better counter programming one. And then I get kind of the final vote as the one who's playing the Dragon Emperor, and I'll explain why I'm most afeared of whichever one I'm most afeared of. So with that said, I think I'm going to go into my list and do some very quick in the head calculations here for how much we are. All right, so that'll work.
So with that in mind, should we cut to the commercial break and talk about next year's Articon?
Oh yeah, yes we should. Go ahead and talk.
So Articon dates have already been announced for next year. Are we all going?
I can't imagine we're not going. What dates were announced? I actually missed it.
This is not a very good commercial. I believe it was the weekend of the 12th and 13th of August. Actually, sorry, that's 2023. I'm looking at 2023. I should be looking
I think
at
it's the 5th through the
2024.
11th. I'm pretty confident it's the 5th through the 11th.
Yes, that's right. So the 10th and 11th of August is the main event, and the whole thing lasts from the 5th to the 11th. And tickets are going to be going on sale very soon. So I was actually super pleased with that week, because for the first time, it's not clashing with my partner's birthday. So I get to play Articon and celebrate her birthday. So that's a big win.
Yeah, that week works for me too. I'll still be here in the Netherlands. And I have that time off of work because I have the teacher schedule, so it works for me as well.
Nice. Evan's gonna be probably still in Dublin, unless he gets kicked out from university or drops out and becomes a gazillionaire or a billionaire or whatever
Could
they
happen.
become these days. Or TikTok influencer, who knows? So
Yeah, that's gonna be my plan. I'm gonna post TikTok. I'm gonna do one of those NPC streams and just like say random stuff that people make me say. I'm gonna make so much money from that. It's gonna be incredible.
All right. This is a 750 point alliance between Moria and Angmar. It contains the Watcher in the Water, Durbers, who is leading 4 goblins with shield, 5 goblins with spear, 4 prowlers, 1 bat swarm, 1 warg marauder. And then it is Gullivar, 5 orcs with shield, 4 orcs with spear and shield, 3 Warg Riders, 3 Dead Marsh Specters. It doesn't specify the general, but I'd wager it is Durbers. That makes the most sense to me.
We should also do a call out to the author of this list, who is Bilbo Swaggins 7427, which is a
I'm
great
sure that's
name.
his real name.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a great name, and what's astounding apparently is it's so great that there were 7,426 people who selected it in front of him. But anyway, good name, Bilbo Swaggins. And this has been up for a while. It's been a while before since we've had a chance to do a list review. So thanks for hanging in. Hopefully your tournament is not come and gone, but at least we'll get a chance to talk about it now. All right, Alisher, what are your thoughts on this list? Because I know you've had some experience with Moria Angmar alliances.
I have played Moria Angmar. I have also played the Watcher, not with Angmar. I mean, I'm going to preface what I say by saying, as far as I'm concerned, anything has the capacity to win a 3-round tournament. The nature of how the game is. Ironically, Veto might honestly be a little bit more challenging for this list, because what Veto tends to do is it removes like skewed opportunities as well as skewed disadvantages. And here, like, certain scenarios are going to be better for you than others. And I think that Veto actually balancing things out could prove to be problematic. That being said, the tandem of the Watcher in the Water and Gulliver is quite interesting. But my first major critique is that only having 2 heroes that have the ability to lead warriors causes you to have obviously a much reduced model count than theoretically you could have, right? You're already taking 3 Warg Riders, 3 Dead Marsh Specters, you have a Warg Marauder in there. So you're taking options that arguably are not the most optimized choices. And you don't have any ability to, so like, whereas Angmar traditionally has the ability to have terror with a -1 bonus, and Moria has the ability to swarm and horde out and not really care about anything else beyond that, you have neither of those things. So if the Watcher in the Water is not killing several models per turn, if Gulliver is not killing several models per turn, you have a massive problem. That being said, it's hard to have answers for both of those things at the same time. The bat swarm is in my view, a cheeky deciding factor where, like, depending on the situation, if someone commits too far one way or too far the other way, the bat has the potential to be able to equalize things pretty quickly. And obviously the anti-hero or hero killing potential of this force is quite noticeable. Yeah, I think those are generally my thoughts. The biggest thing for me is part of it is just like the Philly SPG meta. So like our thing is numbers. Like, we have a lot of guys who will take very cheap heroes just so they can have 50 models at 700 to 800 points. And that's pretty common to have like cheap heroes and then like a lot of expensive elites. And now that doesn't always work. Obviously, if someone's coming at you with 45 to 50 models and I don't know, Faramir or Huron is their greatest opposition, obviously you're going to have the ability to play the field pretty effectively with your 2 very large heroes. But at the same time, the rest of the army can crumble. And if the rest of the army does crumble, Gulliver and the Watcher in the Water are not so resilient to break that I feel comfortable with that. I would say that's my general rundown.
Right. Ev, what are your thoughts?
I'd say very similar to what Alisher has to say. I think just the main flaw of this list is, sure, you can't deal with both Gulliver and the Watcher, but your army is so small and its base warriors are so inherently weak that it's not going to be hard for opponents to simply just walk through your army. And then when they break you, if I remember correctly, I know Gulliver is Courage 4. The Watcher's either Courage 3 or Courage 2. And while he does have a lot of will points,
Yeah, he's on 5-will.
Yeah, 5 will, but eventually after you break, those two models are going to run.
Courage 3.
Courage 3, yeah. So I'd say couple courage tests, the 5 will keep you alive, but especially if there's a caster that's been using magic on the watcher, the watcher's going to run real quick, and then all of your hitting power is gone as well. This army in general also has a huge problem with terror causing armies. With the watcher, it's less of a problem because he can just use his tentacles and drag models in. But Gullivar struggles with terror, and basically none of your base warriors are going to be able to charge because they're all courage 2, possibly courage 1 if the opponent is Harbinger. And it makes things even harder if your opponent has Círdan specifically, because Círdan has both Blinding Light and Aura of Dismay, which means your Watcher is really not going to be doing anything. So I'd say while I don't want to just like completely trash this list, because Gullivar and the Watcher are an extremely powerful combo. But there are many strong disadvantages that this list has and matchups that it just won't win, which in a 3-round tournament isn't the worst thing in the world. But I think this is definitely going to be a challenging list to win with. I'd say if I was going to suggest a change, drop the Marauder for a second Bat Swarm, because I feel like Gullivar and the Watcher in the Water both benefit heavily from having Bat Swarms, and only having one of them means that it can get shut down with like, one Spectre or one Sentinel. It can get transfix compelled, it can get shot out, it can get charged and just flash killed. Having the two to ensure that your 2 monsters without heroic strike will be able to reliably beat enemy heroes is going to be very useful. I'm also not 100% sure about the Goblin Prowlers. You may just want more shields to try and increase your survivability a little bit. But all in all, with this list, those are the 2 changes I would make: is take another Bat Swarm, and then maybe dump the Prowlers down and get some shield guys, and possibly convert a Spectre or 2 into normal orcs, or Warg Riders into normal orcs to get a banner in there, just to help out your monsters a little bit more, just in case. But that's a personal choice, I'd say.
Gotcha. Mick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I generally agree with pretty much everything that's been said. My changes would be, to me, the Prowlers are kind of an additional downside of this list, because you already have so few models. You don't want things which have additional, like, further disadvantages against your opponents. So they will be like the first thing to go for me. Personally, I'm thinking if you were to drop the 4 Prowlers, the Marauder, the Warg Riders, and the Deadmar Spectres, that gives you enough points for a captain, 13 goblins, and 2 orc warriors. So that allows you to fill up 3 full warbands pretty much, and have something like 42 models or so. So in my view, that would mean you're more resilient to things. Like I don't necessarily see that big of an advantage of having a Deadmar Spectre when you have like almost nothing to really take advantage of with their special rules. So like I think if you're relying on the Watcher and Gullivar, then they need to be supported with as many models as possible. Otherwise, those models, like 33 is just going to break too quickly, and as soon as you break, you die.
My gut tells me that the Spectres are there to counter good shooting. Like, I mean, every time now I've played against Gullivar, the play is always, try to pull a model 6 inches forward, get Gullivar to charge in, and like you're able to, squeeze you're able to condense an 18-inch gap between you and your opponent. I think that's why they're there, but arguably having a captain for Heroic March would even be better, I think.
Well, yeah, like I think if you're able to move quicker, then you're kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah, it does become redundant.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are users for the Dead March Spectre with Gullivar and with the Watcher in the Water that you can pull guys out, especially if the other guy has like low courage heroes and stuff like that, where you can, start pulling out the orc captains and stuff and getting them either within range of the Watcher's tentacles or within range of Gullivar. With that said, I do like the idea of kind of dropping all the bells and whistles and putting in a captain and 12 more goblins. I think that's a good idea. Just to add numbers. The other two things I was also thinking of are, I also agree that if you want to do lesser surgery, drop the Warg Rider, definitely put in another Bat Swarm. And you can probably drop one of the Warg Riders into a regular orc in order to do that. Because I definitely think if you can, you want 2 Bat Swarms here. One to support the Watcher in the Water, so he can pull guys over the line and into contact with the Bat Swarm. And another to support Gullivar, so they can both kind of flap in on one hero and pretty much auto erase a hero a turn if they can get guys that way. And then the third option I was thinking of is if you wanted to lean into the Dead March Spectre range, you could drop your Warg Riders into. You could basically turn your Warg Riders with a couple of points from someplace else, like dropping the Prowlers to regular goblins, and get like more Dead March Specters. So you actually had kind of like a front line of Dead March Specters. So you would create kind of a terror wall, and a terror wall backed by Gullivar's Harbinger of Evil, which would be somewhat of a problem. Plus, then you could have like, say 6 courage tests to pull guys out so that there's no shooting, or pull guys out for a Gullivar to jump on, or just kind of pull guys out and put them in the wrong position and kind of mess with them. That was my other thought there. I think all of those work. Yeah, I do say for a 3-round tournament, I think this is going to be a really fun list to play. And it's going to lose in certain situations. I think there are going to be certain situations like Contest of Champions where it's going to be absolutely terrifying. I mean, it has the veto system, so you can get around that. But I think there are going to be some fun games you're going to have with this. So, okay, so here is my list. So my list is going to have, of course, it's going to be led by the Dragon Emperor. There are going to be 6. Now it's going to be led by the Dragon Emperor, and he's going to have his 6 bears, which is the next entry on my army list here. But nobody cares about that because everybody knows they're there. Then we're going to have 15 black dragons with pike and shield. We are going to have 1 black dragon cataphract with a war drum, and have 2 black dragon cataphracts to make out the triumvirate there. And that's going to be his war band at 18 figures. Then we are going to have Borgir the Conjurer, and Borgir the Conjurer is going to have 3 Easterling warriors with sword and bow. He is going to have 2 Easterling warriors with pikes. He is going to have, actually, we're going to make that 4 Easterling warriors with pikes. And then he's going to have 3 Easterling warriors with just shield. So that is going to make his warband a total of, I believe, 10 models. Then we're going to have Rutabi's warband. Rutabi is going to have 10 Easterling warriors with shield, 2 Easterling warriors with pikes, and 2 Dragon Cult acolytes. So that is going to bring her to 14 warriors in her warband. So that would be a grand total of 19, 11, and 15. So that brings us up to 45 models in this warband, and the ability to dump the palanquin and get 6 more. So that's my list. I guess I could have gone the option and put in a what are those guys called?
Knight.
But I elected to go with more warriors for this. So that is the list. So let's see. I'm just going to go, I think, counterclockwise on my screen. So, and then get to Rainier last because he's not on my screen. So, Alisher, what do you have to put up against this 45 model Legion?
Can I just
All
check?
right.
Can I just check before we go there? Just one note. I noticed you have 2 acolytes. I just recently played a tournament against at 800 points, and someone had like, I think it was like 5 or 6 acolytes backed by double pikes, and they ruined my front line. Like, it was so one-sided, I just couldn't believe it. So just a flag. There is
Yeah.
there is a possibility of more acolytes.
Yeah, so that's a different way to run it. And I haven't done this because it's always been my preference to have more models. I mean, part of it is I only own 3 acolyte models. The other problem I've had with this is that if you run into a shooting army, what were you playing, Nick?
Well, I didn't have any bows on my side.
Yeah, so that's the problem.
So yeah, exactly. It sort of polarizes things a bit more, because if you're playing against someone with no bows, you just destroy them. And if you
yeah, I mean, you can't. The problem is if you back them up by 2 pikes, they get trapped, and if they lose a fight, they die instantly.
but they
So it all
would die
depends on-
instantly anyway because they're D4.
Yeah, I mean, you get a lot of dice. That's certainly true. But if like heroes can get into them, they can just cut them apart. And the other thing is shooting. If you have any shooting, they get shot apart. And I hate losing 11. I think they're 11 points. I hate losing 11-point models to just getting shot down. But anyway,
Yeah, cool. I just wanted to flag it.
an alternate technique.
Yeah.
I may have missed it then. You do not have a captain in your list?
Do not have a captain in my list.
Okay.
It's Emperor Rutabi Burger.
Okay, that's what I figured. I went with, or as I was trying to think about countering this, I went through the route of Mirkwood. And I guess I'll explain that after I read through the list. I did ally it. I made a pure Mirkwood list, and then I tried some allying. I think at 800, pure Mirkwood works very well by itself. At 750, I just think it's lacking. So the ally that I have is just a Lake Town contingent, which is pretty standard, but it's Thranduil with the crown, armor, swords, no horse. I know that's a fairly controversial decision. 6 elves with a shield, 1 elf with a banner, 4 with bow, 2 palace guard with shield and spear, 1 knight with a shield, 1 elf with a glaive and a shield, 2 elves with just a glaive, and then Legolas on horse, 4 elves shield, 6 elves bow, 5 elves shield and glaive, and then a Lake Town captain, 3 warriors that are bear, 4 warriors with spear, and 3 warriors with bow. So it's 45 models. It has the capacity to have between 14 and 16 bow shots. 11 of those are elf shots, and then it has 8 mic total.
Gotcha. And remind me how many palace guard there were in total?
Just 2.
Just the 2.
Yeah.
And how many elves in Thranduil's warband again in total?
6, 7. I believe it's counting him, it's 18, but it's 17 like warriors in his warband.
Right. Okay. And then how many in Legolas?
It's max, so 15, and then 16 counting him, and then it's 10 Lake Town warriors, 11 if you count the captain.
Okay. So talk through your strategy on this.
Yeah, I think so. In general, elves obviously I think win out in the dueling from the it's kind of a dice up in terms of who wins out in the dueling. Obviously, unless you're playing Lothlorien, elves don't have pike capacity. But what I find is that if you have the Elven Blade really helps a lot. Obviously, it helps kind of tilt some of the edge against Fight 5. I also find that, like, in my limited experiences playing against Easterlings, like, you may have 45 models, but you don't necessarily have the same width of a battle line because many of them are pikes. So, like, what I've found when I try to play against them is I'm always in a position where I either need to or I'm working to surround. So while I think the elves, because they're 5/5 with Elven Blade, they can hold out longer against instances where they have to fight pike or a firm pike block as they're trying to get around. And then once they get around, if they can start managing to get 2-on-2 fights that are a little bit more traditional, the Elven Blade will kind of be a difference maker there. The Lake Town Warriors, obviously, their primary objective is to flush in with the elf warbands as much as possible. This is, like, in general, I think that the Lake Town Warband is more of a difficult call than it could. For me, it's a more difficult call than it may seem. I don't really like the idea of trying, like, to have random low courage guys trying to hold positions on a board. Because of the way many tournaments are playing right now, with games just coming out of each pool, there's only one pool that's really bad from it. I mean, Maelstrom. So I'm not too worried about that. I think I can play around that pretty well. And then obviously, I think perhaps the centerpiece to it all is Thranduil giving the 3-inch bubble of +1 to wound. Obviously, like, the idea of having the crown for the Nature's Wrath is very important as well, because then that's just, if you can get a good position, you knock down a good chunk of Easterlings, hope preferably in such a way that your opponent can't resist it with one of their heroes. If that's unavoidable, it's unavoidable. But if you can manage it, that's huge, because then you're getting more out of the Nature's Wrath because you have a higher possibility of killing things. I like Thranduil on foot because he rarely loses fights, to be perfectly honest. And I can get a substantial amount of dice if, for whatever reason, I wanted to. Something that I've experimented with just Thranduil's halls in general is to put a Palace Guard behind Thranduil, and then if I can, I just feint with Thranduil. It comes up with Easterlings more because obviously the support by itself is fight 6, so I negate that entirely, and then Thranduil's rerolling 1s, the support gets +1 to wound. And Legolas can harass Brogir if at whatever point Legolas is able to kill or harass Brogir enough, then Thranduil pops up the his Terror or Aura of Dismay, which just adds another level. I think this army just has a lot of layers to it. The bows, obviously, as well, are very helpful. Having, up to 16 shots with 11 of them being elf bow is quite substantial, or 12 of them, I think, being elf bow, I would say is quite substantial. So that's just my general rundown.
Yeah. So just before we go on to the next list, I will say this is definitely a list that I would fear with the Dragon Emperor. It's a list that I've fought before, and this is one of the few lists that can really stand toe-to-toe with the Phalanx for the reasons that you state. It's also going to be fight 5, fight 6 in appropriate circumstances, depending on where you put the Palace Guard. And it's going to win ties it's going to tend to win ties with the Elven Blade. And then if it wins ties, it's pretty likely to wound, at least close to Thranduil. And I think, by the way, at least against this army, putting Thranduil on foot is the correct answer. Because what happens if you put Thranduil on a horse is he duels the Emperor head-to-head, or he duels like Rutabi and another, pike file head-to-head. But if he is on foot, he can go in against the Emperor with a bunch of friends, and if he wins that fight, they can take the Emperor down because they've got enough strikes coming that way, or take him off his Palanquin if they want to go that way, which may be the better way to go with going in and Thranduil wounding the Palanquin on 5-ups.
I find foot Thranduil's just really versatile, not to cut you off. I just, like, with the horse, whenever I play against Thranduil's halls, and it's part of the reason why I don't do it now that I'm playing Thranduil's halls, is like, if you lose a heroic move, you're stuck with 3 dice. If you're on the horse. If you're not on the horse, it becomes infinitely more challenging because he's gonna have 4 dice. If he has a banner, that's 5 dice to win the fight. If he has a support, that's 6 right off the bat. Like it puts you in I think he's more versatile that way, at least in this matchup.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on this matchup. I mean, I think Thranduil on an elk or Thranduil on a horse has his uses in different matchups, but I agree with you in this particular matchup. You don't want to spend the points on that. Spend the points on guys. So, all right. Okay, so before we talk that further, I think continuing our counterclockwise march, the next person we have is Evan.
All right, so I sort of had a similar idea to Alisher, though my execution of that idea is slightly different. I decided to take, I guess some would say, a more unorthodox sort of list, which is I took a Numenor Lothlorien alliance. And in that alliance, first warband and the leader is Galadriel, no mirror or anything like that. And then she's got 2 Galadrim knights with shield and elf bow, 8 Galadrim warriors with shields, 4 guards of the Galadrim court, 1 wood elf sentinel, and 3 wood elf warriors with elf bow and wood elf spear. And then from the Numenor contingent, there's Isildur with horse, shield, and the One Ring. And then there's 7 warriors of Numenor with shields, 1 with spear, shield, and banner, 2 with spears and shields, and 5 with bows and spears. And then finally, there's a captain of Numenor with horse, shield, and lance, along with a warrior of Numenor with bow and spear, and a warrior of Numenor with shield. So all in all, it's a bit smaller. It's 38 models. And basically, the thought process behind this list is you have a decent number of fight 6 with the 4 Galadrim court guards along with Isildur. And you also have Galadriel, who can basically use her magic to either harass the Emperor and try and drain his resources, or just shut down Rutabi and attempt to set her up for a quick and easy kill with Isildur and the Numenor captain. I think the Numenor captain and Isildur are probably the most useful aspect of this list against the Easterlings, just because they threaten either, if the Emperor's untrapped and he calls something like a heroic defense, they immediately threaten killing the Palanquin, because what happens is the captain charges in with his lance, and then Isildur goes two-handed with the ring on, and then basically what ends up happening is you have 3 dice with the knight charging with lance, wounding on 4s on the Palanquin, so that'll do 1 or 2 wounds, and then same with the Isildur, and then you'll have Numenor spears in there as well, which are strength 4. So generally you'll either reduce the Palanquin to 1 wound or 0 wounds, both of which are extremely useful for you. And then if you're lucky and you're able to get invisible Isildur behind the Palanquin, because he can move through models, you can trap him. And if he doesn't call a heroic defense, you can just kill the Emperor like that. And there's absolutely nothing they can do about it. This is especially potent if Galadriel's been able to put a transfix on the Emperor. If you can't get in the right position to kill the Emperor, you can always throw a compel on Rutabi, pull her out of the line, and then she will just instantly fold to an Isildur and a captain charging in. And other than that, other than the hero killing power, the ability to have a combination of defense 6, fight 5 models, some fight 6 models scattered in there, and strength 4 warriors of Numenor, which are able to crack the Easterling defense, I think makes the shield wall quite effective against the Easterlings. So that was my pick for a list to counter.
Yeah, so this is a scary proposition. The other thing you could do with Galadriel, by the way, is use Galadriel to shut down Borgir, because
So
Borgir
another
is
thing about that, by the way, is remember Isildur has a 6-inch resistant to magic bubble.
yeah,
So
okay,
it gives you extra insurance against Borgir as well.
that's
I
fair
forgot to mention that.
for
Sorry.
the Numenorians. Yeah, uh, the yeah, I mean, depending on how it goes, I mean, because Borger is the way, at least on a Hail Mary, you can kind of get out of that situation of being surrounded, because he can tremor somebody that's in the combat and knock everybody down. You're still going to get a chance to resist.
Remember
with
that
the
is, yeah,
magics
Isildur can resist, and he's got resistant to magic and will points.
and will
So,
points. But
Yeah.
if you could, you can also keep, the transfixed is almost redundant if you're getting all this stuff in on the Emperor. In that case, the ace in the hole is Borgir, and being able to shut him down with the transfix pretty reliably is, I think, probably a good thing. Yeah, this is also another scary one to deal with. So, okay, I think having heard that, let's go to Mick.
Yeah, I'm just gonna give you an easy mode on this one.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't necessarily write a list specifically for this. Just I wrote a list which is similar to what I played at Ardacon, and I played a game against Dragon Emperor in that tournament and won quite easily. So this is the Riders of Theoden Legendary Legion. First warband has Theoden with 8 royal guards with throwing spears. Second warband is Gamling with banner with 5 riders. Then it's Derwine with 6 riders, and Dernhelm with throwing spear and 8 riders. So in total, this is 30 models with 17 riders with bows and 8 royals with throwing spears. So everything except Theoden, Gamling, and Derwine throws or shoots. And the idea here is that generally I find with Rohan that you are quite scenario dependent, but there are certain scenarios which, pretty much regardless of what your opponent's doing, you can run around, you can find objectives, you can pretty much accomplish your mission without necessarily engaging into the sort of ball that Easterlings really like to play. So Easterlings are really exceptional when everything comes together. But as soon as you start stepping away from Emperor and spreading out, then that's when they can be picked off. And so this list does that exceptionally well in probably about half of the scenarios. In the other scenarios where you have to run head on, there's very little I can do, to be honest. But there's always bows, there's always throwing spears, and there's 3 heroic strikes, which are gonna be free one time, plus potentially unlimited might and marches. So there's always something that can be done, regardless of the scenario and regardless of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, that is something to think about. I mean, so as you say, a lot of this is going to come down to which scenario we end up playing, because there are going to be some scenarios where,
correct, yeah,
I think I'm going to have the advantage, and some scenarios you're going to have the advantage. But even in the ones, as long as you can avoid kind of getting overrun, right, where I get within 6 inches of you with my ball, probably by drumming, and then win the roll off and get into you, that's obviously a bad outcome for you. But as long as you can avoid that, you can still call death and just send all your fight 5 heroes into just random guys, and then just tie up my heroes with riders who are destined to die, and just just go in and just kill them, right? And see if you can just take out like 6 pikemen with that, on top of whatever else you can get with the rest of your riders. And I think that's a pretty scary proposition for me to go into.
Yeah, and actually another thing that came out of that one game at Ardacon actually was where obviously you have to declare your drum before heroic moves are declared. Is that right? At the beginning
I think
of
it's
the move
after.
phase.
I think it's after. Let me.
Let's just double check.
Yeah,
because
I got a rule book.
because obviously knowing that you're drumming, and well, actually even if it is after heroic moves, my point was going to be that whenever you do drum, it's going to be declared before movement happens anyway.
That is true.
So your drum covers a lot of troops, and so I can then decide, okay, well, if you're drumming, then you won't be charging this turn. So I can be doing things like charge just one guy and then ensure that he doesn't get countercharged. So there was a bit of a strategy going on with that in one of the recent games. So yeah, there's just a lot of options that can be done both.
So as the rules are written, unless there's an FAQ on this, and I'm not aware of it that determines order, it's done at the same time as heroic actions because they both say at the start of the move phase.
Mm-hmm.
So it is essentially a heroic action.
Cool.
Timing wise.
Yeah, no, so there's just the fact that you have a drum means that you can move 9, but obviously you can't always move 9 because there will be times where you decide to drum, but actually it wasn't the correct thing to do as drumming.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things you can do that's always interesting is if you're facing somebody with your extra cavalry movement, if somebody declares that they're going to drum because they're outside of 6 inches of you, and you're close and you end up moving first, whether you're calling a heroic move or whatever, you can just ride up in their face and get an inch away from them.
Yes.
Even if you don't want to charge them. And you can do this with a march too, if you have priority. Get right up in their face and just kind of wall them in to wherever they are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that's really kind of what you necessarily want to do because that puts you in the 50-50. I'm not sure that's necessarily what you want to do.
It depends on the situation you're in a scenario because sometimes you just want to stop someone for a turn and that will be just enough for you to win the game because of whatever timing or whatever objective and so on.
The other thing you can do is if there's a choke point, is just you don't bring your whole army up there, but you just send one rider up.
Yeah.
So that you can't go through the choke point because you can't get within 1 inch of that guy. And if he jumps the one rider the next turn, that's fine. And then he surrounds him, and then you charge into whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, got it, understood. So Renaer, where are you on your thoughts on the other side?
Yeah, so my thought was just do exactly what the Easterlings do and do it better. So with that in mind, I took a Lothlorien and Fellowship Alliance.
Oh, I thought Rainier was going to take Easterlings, but better Easterling list.
Yeah, Easterlings and No, I've got so I have Celeborn, who's fully kitted out. He is leading 7 Fountain Court Guard, 1 Wood Elf with Banner and Spear, and 7
Fountain Court Guard the Celeborn's leading?
Or not Fountain Court Guard, Lord have mercy, guys.
I take it you mean what are they?
Galadriel Guard.
Yeah.
Guard of the Court, yeah. So he's got 7 of them, 1 Wood Elf with Spear and Banner, 7 Wood Elf. After him comes Rumel. Rumel is leading 6 Wood Elf and 6 more Guard. And then allied in comes Boromir on horse with shield and Legolas on horse. So the idea was to kind of I have 31 models, 15 might, and a banner. And I do have March with Boromir. So the idea was to kind of do what Easterlings do, but do it a little better. I would have pikes basically fight 6 across the whole board. I would have 4 heroes that could kind of rogue combat with fight 6 or hold their ground against a hero with fight 6. Many of them are elves as well. I have Boromir and Legolas on horse in case the armies are split up, so they can kind of go ham against, let's say, a Easterling warband if they're by themselves. And yeah, the basic gist of my play would be to get fight 6 in all the right places and to double-handed with the elf warriors. Because I played Clansmen a lot back in the day, and I do like how they're only 8 points and you can kind of get cheeky kills. So the Wood Elves at only 8 points were a way to kind of get the numbers up and get some killing power. So I would have a battle line of fight 6 and two-handed whenever I need it to, so +1 to kill along with those heroes. And of course, Legolas in there is to harass Borgir or take out a few models if he needs. So yeah,
All right, so let me just ask some questions. How many models total again?
31.
31 models. And composition of Celeborn's warband was, I think it was 7 Galadrim court guard, 7 wood elves. Was it wood elf
Yeah.
with sword? And 1 banner. And then what was in Rumil's warband again?
Rumel was 6 and 6.
6 wood elves and 6 Galadrim.
Yeah.
All right. So all right. So yeah, I mean, I get the theory here. I mean, the potential I have is I'm just going to get out fought all across the board. I guess the downside on this is that if I win a combat, your wood elf in the front is dead.
Oh, for sure.
And which creates kind of an interesting dynamic, because this is a situation where I think I can just go ahead and spread out, because I don't. There's a point where I cease to care about the +1 fight value here. So I just concede fight value. I'm going to lose ties, and I just actually try and spread out and because I outnumber you and I use my numbers against you. And try and win that way, and kind of trust to my higher defense over your my higher defense and my 12-inch banner over your fight value, which is an interesting fight. I'm not sure how that ends up working out. I guess the other thing that I would be concerned about, Rainier, if I were you, is if I can get Borgir into a position where I can tremor down a line of wood elves, because they're going to die easily.
Yeah. My only thing, the army bonus is resistant to magic.
You do have resistant to magic, which is good enough, but still. All right. Well, cool. That's interesting. All right. So I'm going to sum up here, and then I think what we'll do is we'll do the voting from the panel, and then as you guys are kind of talking through why you chose what you did, I'm going to go against the ones that I'm kind of most scared of. So to sum up, we have Alisher, who did a Mirkwood Laketown Alliance with Thranduil on foot. Legolas, was Legolas on horse? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Thranduil on foot, Legolas on horse, and then a Laketown captain with a total of, I think, 45 models. We were matched model for model in that. And he's relying on the high fight value and the elven blades and the +1 to wound to kind of just cut through me. And then we had Evan. Evan had Galadriel, Isildur with a ring, and a captain of Numenor, and then I think you had 4 Galadrim guards here. So this is basically an attempt to assassinate assassinate whomever you can, whether it's Rutabi or the Emperor, but ideally to take the Emperor out, with Isildur coming behind to try and trap the Emperor and putting the captain into the front with 38 models. Then we had Mick, and Mick went mounted here, and you had a total of 30 models, all of whom are mounted, and a whole bunch of shooting, and then the capability to come in, call death, and get a whole bunch of strike ups. And then we had Rainier with a Lothlorien Fellowship Alliance with a smaller number of models. I think it was 31, did you say, Rainier?
Yeah, 31.
31 models, but fight 6 all across the line, with the downside being that defense 3 wood elves in front. So those are the options. So why don't we go, Alisher, if you were in my shoes, who would you be most afraid of, and why?
Not picking my list.
And you can pick your list. That's valid as long as you justify it.
Yeah, I like the justification of my list. I think obviously all of these lists are tailored, so they're all pretty good. I think it's tough. For me, like it's between my list or it's between Evan's list. My list has no answer for Brogier outside of Legolas harassing him or shooting. I mean, I have a lot of shooting. I think Evan's list had between having resistance to magic and an aggressive caster, like Brogier becomes not a non-variable, but a much less of a variable. And then obviously Isildur is just a good hero in general. My only fear with Evan's list is that obviously the Numenorian captain ties the fight of the Easterling warriors. So there's a potential, obviously all of this is player dependent. There's a potential that the Numenorian captain gets in a bad position, loses his horse, and is less effective. So that all being said, Evan, is Isildur mounted? Yeah, you said yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll go with Evan's list. I think the strength 4 across the board, or a lot of strength 4 definitely helps a lot, in addition to the other things.
All right. All right. So you're voting for
Evan. I said Evan's list.
Okay, got it. All right. So Evan.
All right. I'm actually in a similar predicament to Alisher. I'd say it's between my list and his list. I think those two, they seem to be like the most reliable against the Emperor because Mix is very dependent on scenarios, I'd say. And Rainier's just because of his low defense has a very high chance of something going horribly wrong and his elves just sort of evaporating along with it being a pretty small army. Um, I am inclined to pick my own list just because I feel like I have a little bit more offensive potential against the Easterlings, just with the offensive casting from Galadriel and the threat that Isildur brings with the ring. I'm not overly concerned with the captain only being fight 5, just because A, he's so cheap. He's 65 points in total. I think 70 actually. But he's extremely cheap, and if he loses his horse, you can always chuck a couple Galadrim court guards behind him, and then you can deal with that fight value that way, and he's still pretty good with 2 attacks and strength 4 and 2 might points. But mainly you want to be using him in tandem with Isildur to get assassinations with his lance. So yeah, I'd say I'd give it a slight edge to my list, but I think the Nature's Wrath threat from Thranduil is also very strong. Just using it on a turn, if you're lucky, using it on a turn where you lose priority and just completely demolishing a flank, would be extremely strong. So I'm voting for my list.
Right. Mick.
I would obviously vote for my list, but in this case, I won't. Having heard arguments for and against Alisher and Evan, I won't be voting for Rainier's list just because I don't think the numbers are enough considering the low defense at the front. But between Alisher and Evan, I actually would be leaning more towards Alisher's list because, first of all, the Nature's Wrath can be extremely powerful, especially when you combine it with the +1 to wound that the elves get nearby Thranduil. So the fact that Evan's list has Numenorians, obviously with strength 4, so 5 skill, to me gets offset by the fact that Alisher has the +1 to wound on the Palace Guard. There is Palace Guard in that list, correct?
2 of them, yeah.
Yeah. So there is a bit of that, and in general, the fact that you have 45 models over 38 for Evan, I would say you're able to spread further. And again, it's one of those where the Emperor's list just likes to bubble up. They don't necessarily like spreading so much. So I'd be keen for you to have a bit more of an advantage because of that. And the other thing is, if you start far away from Matt, then your up to 16 bow shots will increase your chances further, because then the fight won't start at 45 versus 45. It might start at like 45 versus 40. So at that point, Matt is actually again, well, yeah, he's fighting from behind, trying to catch up. So I would vote for Alisher's list.
All right. All right. So we've got 2 for Evan, 1 for Alisher. And Rainier, your thoughts?
I think having heard all the list, I would go for Alisher's list. But my reasons behind that are just the idea that you come up against scenarios like assassination or fog of war. Already Legolas can harass and like kind of get the one up. Matt, you also don't have a captain in your list, so you're not going to go as fast as you could. So his shooting is going to take out, I would say, like around what Mick said, maybe like 4 or 5 models on average, and it would put him up. And then also just that death bubble of Thranduil just tears through anything. And I don't know with his defense 6 elves in the front if you can match the killing speed as well as the Thranduil bubble. So for that reason, I would go with Alisher's.
Gotcha. All right. Well, it's tied up. So I guess
Alisher comes back from behind after
He
2-0 to Evan. Now it's 2-2. Who's going to win? Are we going to extra time?
Yeah. So this is
Commercial break.
interesting because I become the deciding vote here. Or I could go the other way. So let's go through these lists in reverse order. I think for the reasons previously stated, I'm not going to select Rainier's list as the most feared list because and part of this is I've just come off the sting of playing a game where I had Wood Elves, where kind of they went in with a bunch of advantages with extra dice and spears and banners, and just roll the 3 highest, got beaten by ordinary orcs and then died. I can see that happening here. I suspect I suspect I could probably take this list in a heads-up fight just because of the low defense. So I don't think that's it. As has been pointed out against Mick, I think there are going to be certain scenarios where he's going to have the advantage. There are going to be certain scenarios where I have the advantage. And I think probably because of that, because it's more scenario dependent, I don't think I'm going to pick Mick's list either. So that does bring us down to Alisher and Evan. And boy, this is a tricky decision because I think there are lists where Evans is going to be superior. There are going to be lists where Alisher's are going to be superior. And there are different things I can do to counter the 2 of them. And I am afraid of Alisher's shooting. And I am afraid of Evan's tricks. And I am afraid of Alisher's +1 to wound near Thranduil. And I am afraid of Evan's basically strength 5, along with a tied fight value here. So I have to make up my mind. And Alisher has the greater models. So I think I'm going to pick Evans, but to a certain extent, this is a coin toss. And I'm saying that the reason I'm deciding this is because I have experience fighting this Thranduil army with the Emperor army, and I managed to beat it each time. I have not, well, actually, that's not true. I did lose to it final round at Articon when we were playing Assassination, and lost to it because Legolas, finally plinked out my my hero that was the target. But that is one of the inherent advantages of this list. The rest of the time, I've been able, through kind of canny play and putting my heroes in the right place, to kind of take down this list, even though it was tough and it could have gone the other way. And there's kind of more unknowns in Evan's Unholy Numenor Lothlorien Alliance, and more tricks in there that I think are really going to put me at an advantage, because I have to do one of two things. I have to keep the Emperor out of the fight, or I need to be very careful about where I place him and the folks that I put behind him to kind of protect his rear from the Isildur sneaks through attack. And it's going to be very difficult to both protect his back and get him in a position where he can still back up. It's going to be really hard to get the Emperor into the fight on this list. And if the Emperor is out of the fight, I'm not sure what I necessarily have that can stop Isildur and the captain coming in. All right, so I'm gonna vote for Evan, but with the caveat that I am almost equally afraid of Alisher's list and could see that taking down the Emperor too. So that's my thought. So I think
it's a 52-48.
Yeah, I think it's a 52-48. Yeah. That's right. And Alisher, I'm sorry, you fell victim to the fact that other folks have tried this particular one before, although not with quite as many figures. The addition of a Lake Town captain to get the additional figures, I think, is a good add. And I think the other folks that I played against, this Thranduil has tended to be on an elk. And that has allowed, like, the Emperor just to dual Thranduil heads up, or Rutabi and some pike guys to dual Thranduil head up, and that has been useful. So, all right. So I think it's going to be Evan. The next time we get together, we can do we're going to do a battle map battle where we'll put a map up. We'll come up with a scenario, and Evan and I will talk through our strategies, and everybody else can be in the peanut gallery and critique.
Cool. Can I just add that my recent game against Thranduil, Mary stood his ground against Thranduil, so actually it's all the way to Evan.
Yeah.
Well, Thranduil's rubbish.
All right, so we are now going to review a list. Who wants to stay in and review a list? All right, Nick's going to stay in.
I'll stay.
All right. Rainier, are you going to stay too? You're in the background.
He gotta go.
He's going.
Just because I'm using data on my phone right now and I'm about to run out because my internet is messing up right now.
All right, Rainier, thanks for joining us.
I'm thoroughly offended, Matt, that you did not choose my Wood Elf list. Someday
we'll have to try that one out and see how it goes.
Yeah, well, good news for you guys. I'm gonna play an event in a couple weeks here in the Netherlands. Then I'm gonna play the other one when you guys are coming over. So I will one day become a good player again.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to see how your Wood Elves do.
All right. See you guys. Bye.
All right. Take care. I think that's going to bring it to the end of another episode of An Unexpected Podcast. Good to hear from you. Let us know what you think about the new format. If you have any other ideas for other formats, and let us know how things are going. And we'll see you in another few weeks when the Emperor will square off against Galadriel and Isildur in the historic combination. So with that said, bye everybody.